Welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service.
Hi, everyone. Today, the topic of my Dharma Talk is relative bodhicitta, or the awakened heart is what Khentrul Lodro Te calls this chapter in The Power of Mind, the awakened heart. And I really like that terminology. And I'm going to real quick read to you what he says in the book about this, and then I will talk about it some. So in The Power of Mind, Khentrul Lodro Te says, and I quote, "The root of all suffering is our intense clinging to the idea of our identity, what we call the self, and the extreme attachment to that self, what we call selfishness, which leads to afflictive thoughts and emotions. The root of all happiness is the wish to benefit others. This motivation, which is focused on the welfare of others and the pursuit of ultimate freedom, is what we call bodhicitta." And I go on a little bit more. "We all have the potential to attain ultimate happiness, the state of total realization, enlightenment. Why? Because enlightenment is already the nature of our mind. We call it the ground Buddha nature. Bodhicitta is the consummate kind heart." So, we differentiate absolute bodhicitta from relative bodhicitta, in that absolute bodhicitta is sort of like, I'm going to disentangle myself from my selfishness and I'm going to manifest wisdom. And maybe that's really high-minded and hard to think about sometimes. Relative bodhicitta is, I'm going to be nice to my neighbors. So maybe that's a little bit easier for us to think about. I don't know if it's easier for us to do, though. So, as he stated, though, this is considered our true nature. Our true nature is good. Our true nature is awakening. And if we can learn to think that way, then maybe a lot of this path doesn't feel so daunting. If we can learn to think, my true nature is good, rather than some other ideas we might have about people being broken or, I'm not a broken, anxious mess. That's just the weather, and the sky underneath is my true nature, which is good. And I'll tell you a quick story. And this story, there was a temple in Thailand called the Temple of the Great Golden Buddha. And in the 1700s, this temple was really popular and beloved, and people came from all over to visit this temple. And that's a good thing, because while they're there, what do? They make donations, they learn from the monks there. All these great things are happening because they're coming from all over, because it's got the best statue. And, maybe that's not a great reason to go to a temple, but it worked. So in the 1700s, word came to the temple that people were coming to invade. So the monks in the temple, they're really nervous because they think, well, what happens when invaders come? Well, they take your gold. And this statue's really made out of gold. So they're like, well, they're just going to take it. And we don't want that. They might even tear down our temple or whatever, but they're going to take our gold statue. So what should we do? And this one young monk comes up with this idea. He says, okay, what we should do is just get a bunch of mud and dirt and rocks and maybe some cheap gems and stuff too. And we're going to just cover the statue completely. So when the invaders come, they're not going to know it's gold, they're not going to care about it, and they're going to leave us alone. That was the plan. So they do it. So they go and they cover it in all this stuff. So the statue, doesn't even really look like a Buddha that much anymore, because it's just got junk all over it. And the invaders come to the temple, and they barely look at the statue, and they leave. They don't hurt anybody, they leave, and the statue's protected. But the thing is, these monks, they don't feel 100% safe, so they think, well, we're just going to leave it covered for a little while. And so if those people come back, they're still not going to take it. And so what happens is, you guys, this was the 1700s. 200 years go by. Okay? And so we started in George Washington's time, and now we're in post-World War II. Everyone that knew the original golden statue has died. They're not around anymore. And one day, this monk is doing cleaning duties, because monks have to, the temple's got to get clean, so of course that stuff happens. And he notices a little glint on the statue. and he goes to investigate, and he discovers it's gold underneath, and he goes and gets everybody. He's like, hey, this statue, it's gold underneath. And they go, and they tear all that stuff out, and they clean it off really well, and they restore the statue, and you can go see it. This is a real thing. And the golden statue is back. And that was quite a bridge I just built to tell you that story. Why would I tell you that? The point is, that statue, it was never not gold, right? It was covered up by mud and dirt, but it was always gold underneath. And that is what I want to submit. We can think of ourselves that way too. So when I feel like a failure, when I feel like a bad person, when I feel like I'm not making good choices, I could try to remember, okay, but underneath is Bodhicitta. I have to remind myself, Buddha nature's underneath. What's underneath is good. In the same way, I've heard this metaphor, the sky is who you really are, and your anxieties and your baggage and your the many, many mistakes you've made, of which I've made many, are like the weather or clouds in the sky. But the sky's still there. The sky's still there, and we can see beyond the clouds. And that's what I want to suggest we try to do. So in the book, Kentrol Lodrote, he says disturbing emotions come from our attachment to ourselves, from our selfishness, and that if we learn to sort of open up our hearts, then we're going to manage our selfishness better, and it's not going to keep us down so much. I used to think, I used to have this attitude like, I don't really want to do open heart teachings because I don't even like people that much. So why would I want to open up my heart? I used to think that way. A lot of people think that way, maybe, but I used to think that way. And my views have really shifted, though. I think the way we find some inner peace and some happiness, one of the ways is learning how to connect with other people. Sometimes in Buddhism, we talk about I'm generating the wish to save all beings, right? And I like to think of that as, because that sounds like, that's like up here. I'm going to save all beings. What am I, Superman, right? But I like to think of, I'm going to save all beings from me, because what do? I move through life and make problems for other people. That's what I do, right? Relatable? Maybe. So what I want to save all beings from is my bad decisions. And that includes me. I want to save myself from my bad decisions too. So there's a quote I'm going to recite for you. There's a non-Buddhist spiritual teacher named Ram Dass. He passed away a few years ago. He's not Buddhist, forgive me for quoting him, but he said this thing that really resonated with me when I first read it. He said, I would like my life to be a statement of love and compassion, and where it's not, that's where my work lies. I would like my life to be a statement for love and compassion. Where it's not, that's where my work lies. And that's a quote that means a lot to me, because I think that is Bodhicitta. I want my life to be a statement of love and compassion. That's what I want. He has another famous quote that I'm going to just sneak in here because I really like it. He said, if you think you're enlightened, try go spending a week with your family. And I really like that one. Try spending a week with your family. And that's true. Sometimes the people we care about the most are the ones that can make us the most feeling like we're unenlightened, right? So, one thing I think about when I think about Bodhicitta is this, and much apologies, I'm going to talk about a TV show now. There's this show, and it's called Ted Lasso. Do you guys know it? It's okay if you don't. Totally absurd premise with this show. The main character, he was a football coach in Kansas, and he gets hired to be a soccer coach in England. It's totally ridiculous and would never happen, right? But we find out as the audience, I promise this is going somewhere, we find out very soon that the owner of the team, her name's Rebecca, she secretly wants the team to have a really big failure. She wants her team that she owns to not succeed. She wants the coach, Ted Lasso, to embarrass himself, and it to just everything to go badly is what she secretly wants. And we as the audience find that out fairly soon. But the main character, Ted, he doesn't know. And not only does she just want the team to fail, and that's why she hired a football coach to coach a soccer team, but also she does various things to try to sabotage his efforts. And after a while, though, he manifests so much love and compassion and good nature that actually she starts to feel guilty for what she's doing. She starts to feel guilty. He wins her over. She's charmed. So she starts to feel really bad. So she goes, she confesses to him, and she says, hey, I hired you because I think you're going to fail. I've been sabotaging you in this list of ways and trying to make you fail. And she's really upset when she's telling him this. And the reason I'm telling you all of this story is because what he does is he immediately he says, I forgive you. His immediate response is not what mine would be, to get upset, right? His immediate response is, okay, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do? I forgive you. He just had that kind of unlimited compassion and patience that I want to have, and that I think we can try to cultivate in ourselves. So now that we've talked about Bodhicitta quite a bit, how do we do it though, right? How do we manifest it? And in the book, The Power of Mind, Khentrul Lodrö, he talks about this concept called the four immeasurables. The four immeasurables. And he calls them love, compassion, rejoicing, and equalness. The more traditional translation, people call these kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. That's the version I'm familiar with, but that's okay. We can let him do his own version. That's okay. And I'm going to read to you a quick quote from this book that I like a lot called Boundless Heart by Christina Feldman. This is a whole book on the four immeasurables, and I really like this book. I've taught a class about it before. But she says, and I quote, "Threaded through the entirety of the Buddha's path of awakening are the teachings on cultivating the boundless heart, immeasurable kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. These qualities are referred to as the Brahma Viharas." You don't have to remember that. Brahma refers to the sublime or noble tenor of these qualities. Vihara originally comes from the word for monastery, so it's the place we make our home. We are encouraged, whenever we are awake, to make kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity the home of our heart. This is the noblest way of living in the world here and now. Noblest way. Wow. Right? So I'm going to just go through those four and tell you my understanding of them. So that first one, which Khentrul Lodrö refers to as love, that the original word is metta, and that is, I want good things to happen to you. That's what it is. It is, I want good things for other people. And these can also be self-directed. I want good things for myself, of course. Maybe we struggle more with wanting good things for other people. But and an aspect of this is, though, it's still supposed to be, the intention is that it's boundless. So when I want good things for people, that doesn't mean just I want good things for my wife. Of course I want good things for my wife. I want good things for everyone, though. That is what we're going after with these four immeasurables. So that's differentiated from the second one, compassion, which the original word is karuna, and that is, I want less suffering for you. So love is, I want good things to happen to you, and compassion is, I want bad things to not happen to you or to stop happening to you. That is compassion. And the third one, which he calls rejoicing, the original word is mudita, and I've seen this called sympathetic joy, which, and maybe that's a term that might not mean a lot to us, but it means I want to be happy when other people succeed, and not in the ordinary way where something good happens to someone and you're like, oh, I'm so happy for you. We say that, but we want to learn how to really, for real, feel it. So it's easy for me to feel joy. Well, it will be easy for me to feel joy if my daughter passes her driving test, of course, if that happens. But it's harder for me to feel joy if something good happens to the mailman, right? But wow, what if I could, right? If I could do that, then I could be happy anytime because there's good things happening to people all the time, right? The last one he calls equalness, it's usually called equanimity, and the original word is upekkha, and that is this quality where we keep a calm and even mind. So we don't fall apart when things get bad. But there's sort of two sides to it too. I think we make the worst decisions when we're really sad, but we also make sometimes bad decisions when we're really happy, right? So an even mind, I want to make the best decisions all the time, right? And that's what I want for you too. So if you've ever gone on a date with someone and there's obvious red flags and you're ignoring those because you like the person, right? That is getting carried away by how happy you are, right? And I know I've made some bad decisions in that situation, and I imagine you have too. So those are the four measurables. And the point is, we want no one to get left out. No one to get left out. And I'll read to you another quick quote from this book, Boundless Heart, that again, I highly recommend. She says, and I quote, there's going to be a quote within a quote in this, sorry. One of the jewels within the Buddha's path is this well-known teaching from the Honeyball Discourse. What we frequently think about and dwell upon becomes the shape of our mind. The shape of our mind shapes our world of experience. We see in our own experience that if we repetitively dwell upon fear, ill will, or an obsession, we essentially get better at it and more prone to make those patterns our home. The patterns become almost our default mechanisms, creating and recreating distress and despair. If we frequently incline our hearts and make our homes intentionally within kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, these too become the shape of our mind, the homes we abide in, and shape our world of experience in a radically different way. So when we talk about these, a big aspect of this is intention setting. So I want to set the intention in my life to manifest love, compassion, rejoicing, and equalness. I want to manifest having an even mind. And the thing is, we forget though. We forget when we need it the most is really when we forget it. So when, for example, big horrible things are happening in the news and big bad things are happening to everyone, we sometimes forget our compassion at that point. And that's when we need it the most. That's when we need these qualities the most, is when big things are happening. But sometimes we forget. So we want to set this intention so we remember. And if we forget to show compassion and we regret it later and we think, oh, I could have handled that better, well, the least we can do is think about how we regret that, so that hopefully next time we do a better job. And when I think about the four immeasurables, I think about, this is a really an example. I got a promotion at work. Okay, so when I got this promotion at work, if you were a person that had this love, this metta for me, then you would be wanting me to get a promotion at work. Great, right? And the thing about this promotion, though, is that I was very nervous about it. At a certain point, I don't really want to learn new things in my job. What? Right? So at a certain point, I get comfortable. I get comfortable in situations, and so I was very comfortable. So I was anxious about learning a new role, right? And so if you had compassion for me, then you would want me to not have anxiety about that, right? You would want to try to help me or to think about ways I could lower my anxiety, right? So if you had rejoicing in your heart, then me getting this promotion would literally make you happy. And again, we're not talking about oh, I'm so happy for you. We're talking about if you have this rejoicing, then what you're not going to do is think, oh, I wish I could have that promotion instead. And that's how we think sometimes, right? Jealousy is a big thing for many of us. And so if you're manifesting rejoicing, then you're going to be happy for me, really happy. And then equalness, that's what I need to manage my anxiety about learning this new position. I need equalness so that I'm not lying awake at night worrying, right? What if I'm not good at this, right? What if this 6 weeks of training makes me go crazy because training makes me go crazy, right? I don't know. And so equalness of mind is what I really need. And I'm going to talk very quickly about a couple practices we can do. And one is Tonglen, which we did here today, which we do here at the Rime Center often. It's a practice to manifest our compassion. How do we do that? We imagine ourselves breathing in the suffering of someone or of the whole world, and we imagine ourselves breathing out like positivity. And this has a big role in intention setting when we do a practice like that. Famously, somebody asked the Dalai Lama, somebody asked him, are you really lessening the suffering of others when you do Tonglen practice? Gosh, are you really lessening the suffering of others? Does it really help people? And the Dalai Lama said, well, it doesn't matter because it helps you. It doesn't matter because it helps you. Inclining our hearts toward compassion helps us. We are better off if we're not making enemies out of the world all the time. We're better off if we're having harmony and kindness and love with the people around us. And the other practice I want to talk about is, it's actually very similar to Tonglen practice. It's called metta meditation, which is a practice I like a lot. And it's similar. I sort of think, I haven't done the research, so I don't know the answer to this, but I sort of think the creators of Tonglen meditation knew about metta meditation and they were thinking about it. But it is where you bring someone to mind and you mentally say to them positive phrases in your mind. You say to them, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be at peace. You say those in your mind, and you bring to mind different people, and you start with someone you really love, and then you start with someone who maybe doesn't mean anything to you, and then you sort of continue to try to do it. So you try to have love for your enemies. You try to generate these positive feelings toward people we don't like. And so I really like metta practice too. So I'm going to read to you one last quote from The Power of Mind, and then we'll be done. So, Khentrul Lodrö says, and I quote, Bodhicitta is the supreme practice for taming the mind. Everything hinges on whether we have it or we don't. To develop bodhicitta to the full extent, we have to train our minds through formal meditation practice. Taming the mind and the process of changing our experience does not happen outside of ourselves. It's not about manipulating outer phenomena. It's the practice of changing ourselves from the inside. At first, the training can seem like a contrived process, but if we meditate again and again, and we train in the practice over and over, it eventually becomes our ongoing experience and completely natural. Till that point, we need mind training. So it's just we're doing it again and again. We're setting the intention again and again. Hopefully, at some points, I'm going to stop making enemies out of the world around me, and I'm going to manifest love and compassion in my life. I'm reminded of, this song, Try a Little Tenderness by Otis Redding. Do you know it? Are you all too young? But I think the theme of the song is his friends are going to him for relationship advice. And they're like, hey, my wife's really sad. What should I do? And he's just like, well, have you tried being super nice? Try a little tenderness, right? Have you tried being really nice? I think that's the theme of that song. And I think we can all try a little tenderness in our lives and hopefully have better relationships with the world around us. So thank you. I hope this talk's been helpful.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Brand Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.